This is something I've been working on for a lifetime. At this point in my life, I'm 69 years old. I've had years and years, oh my God, more years than you can even imagine, of experience in business. All the way from starting as a call center agent way back in the 70s to being a CEO and president as I am today. But you do have a need to learn and gain information from some of the experience, hopefully, that I've had that'll give you some benefits. That's just from all of the experience I've had, all of the time put in, all of the risks I've taken and the failures I've faced and the success that I seem to have found. So being the guy that I am, I started writing a book because I figured, okay, well, maybe someday someone will see this somewhere, pick it up, it'll plant a seed for them, and they'll get some of the lessons that I've worked hard to learn. So with that, the book is called Lessons I've Learned in No Particular Order. Join in, listen, send me some questions. At least I can give you my opinion on things and maybe give you some insight. It's really something that I wish I had when I was growing up in the business. I did grab onto a couple mentors, and all unbeknownst to them, those are the people that I learned with. So let me share with you some of the lessons I've learned in no particular order. Hey everybody, really good to get the chance to talk to you today. It's a Good Friday. We're heading into Easter. If you're taking the time while I'm doing this live to watch, I appreciate you doing that. Otherwise, listen, I hope you're looking at this at any time, and I hope it helps you. You know, as the intro says, I've spent a lot of years in management and running companies as a CEO. And the thing that was always outstanding to me was trying to understand, where do I start? How do I build a business? How do I become a manager? How do I take on a new position? And where do I go with it? And there was a period of time that I was really shooting from my hip. There was a period where the idea of being a manager was great, but actually being it was as if I was scared to ask my bosses, well, what do you want me to do? Because I didn't want to lose my job. And at the same time, I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. Most organizations that you step into are already working. You have great people and they have their processes and approach. And I'm sitting there kind of wondering, what am I? Where do I fit? I can actually tell you something. About 20 years ago, I was looking at my company, and we had about 400 employees. And I had been doing everything in that company for the first few years. Inevitably, I was walking around and I realized, I'm not so needed. People are doing their job without me. So what am I supposed to do? And, I actually went back to my office and spent months looking at, in my search engine, what does a CEO do? So I really had to kind of learn hard. And unfortunately, the people that worked with me had to deal with me learning my job on the fly. And because my position was one that influenced other people, in some ways it wasn't fair. And I never had a specific person or book I read that gave me any epiphanies. And although I'm not believing that what I'm doing here is necessarily going to be an epiphany for you, at least it's a bit of some of the lessons that I've learned. And I can give them to you, and maybe at some point, if they don't resonate today, they'll gain traction in the future, because you might be in a situation and you might hear yourself saying something and realize that, wait a minute, there was another approach to this. So I've got a lot of lessons. I've documented a ton of them, and at that point, I was like, well, why don't I put it in order in a book and get it to people? And then my staff was like, well, why don't we start with a video? So that's what I'm doing. So today, the the genesis of the thinking is this. Uh, what is the culture and what is the mood that has to happen in a company to reach exponential success? Now, I'm not talking about moderate success, and I'm not talking about static. I am talking about how do you get into the mode of vertical growth. All right, it's my belief that most people in business, maybe even in your personal life, are really comfortable saying no. In other words, think about it. If you come up with an idea, if you want to do that idea and you're really excited about it, and then you go to maybe your boss or maybe a family member and you say, here's my idea. I am excited. I want to do this. And mostly, what do you get back? I think most people get back, yeah, well, here's the problem with your idea. Here's why it won't work versus here's why it will. Many people will say things like, well, we've tried that before. I appreciate you thinking about it. Keep thinking, but yeah, no, not that. And it sort of sets in motion a belief through an organization that just go implement, your ideas are not important. So I'm in an industry where the technology that we build and service to our contact center clients is mission critical. And oftentimes there are problems. So the software may not be working, it's complicated, and the user may not remember how to do something. And they have hundreds, if not thousands, of agents sitting in seats somewhere using it. So it's critical that it works. So we'll get calls or emails saying, help me, help me. And when we get those, we have to react to them. And the truth is, we don't have all the answers. You may be facing something that we haven't seen before. And under the pressure of the moment, it's very difficult to simply go to the solution. Kind of like it would be for an emergency room where you ran in and you had something happen to you, and they look at you and they go, okay, I can see some things to do, but I'm not sure of everything that's going on. So in that moment, people are ideating, people are coming up with alternative thinking, and people are saying, well, let's try this, or let's do one thing or another. So imagine if that didn't happen that way, and that the solution process was if you didn't know the answer, you just said, well, sorry, I don't know the answer. You don't do that, right? Instead, what do? You continue to look and try things, whether they've been tried before. So in my opinion, life is very much the same way. Companies must learn how to get comfortable with people's ideas, ideals, and approach. And they got to get comfortable saying yes. It's almost like if you're managing something, start being uncomfortable when you say no. If you hear yourself, if you get to a point to where your first reaction is, yeah, nah, stop it. Start with the premise that an idea is, I'm not going to judge the idea. I don't know better than anybody else. So if somebody has an idea, let's try it. But look, we can't just take any idea, we know that, and just do it. So you may want to go a little farther in terms of that idea while saying yes. In other words, here's the suggestion that comes to you, and your first reaction is, okay, so let's talk about how we're going to implement that. Versus, yeah, no, not now. We don't have the time. Go back, think about it more. All those things are kind of negative in reality. Rather, how are we going to do it? Okay, Bob, how are we going to do that? Let's talk about it for a minute. Have you thought about it? And what the next steps are? And begin to build a culture that is more confident than less confident. And it really comes down to another lesson, which is do more, not less. More is always better than less. And when you're impacting your customers and you're making promises to those customers, and those customers are dependent upon how you react to something, it's a heck of a lot better to say yes and how versus no and nah, this isn't the best time to do that. One of the things I do is I try very hard when an idea comes forth, whether it's my idea or somebody else's, is to not judge it first, is to try it first, play it out, look at the scenario, let other people look at it, and do your best to maintain a positive outlook. Because if you're a leader in your company, what happens if you begin to have that emotion going all the time of, well, I'm not so sure, now's not the time, send it to me in an email, we'll talk about it later. And when you start to do that, people begin to be less creative. And there are a lot of reasons why we're successful, but really you have to recognize that it isn't just product, it isn't just process and approach. It's really the energy that goes into it. How are you going to build a passion play in your business or your organization? To build that passion play requires you to say yes, to say, all right, let's give it a shot. Let's do it. Let's congratulate each other later. But for now, let's take that idea and let's do something with it. So let me give you an example. So we're building at NobleBiz a really cool and exciting environment. And one of the things that we do is we're selling our contact center software all over the world into different markets in terms of giving this audience a world global grasp. So we know and we're well thought of in terms of how we do this in the United States. So now we move to a different area. We go to that area, and of course, we're going to do what we've always done. But what happens if, when we go to that area, we learn that what we always have done is not really resonating or gaining traction in that environment? What do? Do you just quit it and you just say, well, what we do doesn't match the area? Well, I hope you don't do that. Here's what I do. I'll look at an area and I'll listen to the local thinking and all the thinking about a group of ways that we believe that we can be successful within the nuance and subtleties of that area. As an example, right now we're in Morocco. Morocco's doing a lot of communication with France, with Belgium, and other French-speaking areas. So they're calling into there. So when we went there with a specific direct model. We have staff there. We, just like we do in the US, we connect the customers into our main approach to fundamentals of how we do support and implementation, and we sell directly. Okay, and it's working. Now, today, we're getting ready to open another region in India. Now, in India, we're talking to some very, very experienced people that we're just excited as heck to be included with and be a part of. But they don't want to be employees. They don't want to work in that relationship. At the same time, they want to be NobleBiz, and they want the support of NobleBiz in their market. But they believe they understand the climate and the nuance better than we may know it. Well, and I suspect they're right. The main person over there has over 20 plus years in our contact center technology world. All right, so what do? If they don't want a direct model, but we want that market and we really like that person, isn't it better to say to that person, all right, tell us how you want it. Tell us how you would do it. So in this case, the way it's been suggested that we do it is through a master distributorship. So rather than having a direct office, we have an independent business that's sole purpose is to employ people and use our technology in the market. So that's great. They're committed to us. Their livelihood is based upon that. They understand the nuance, but they want a master distributorship. But here's the thing: NobleBiz hasn't done a master distributorship before. So what do we do? Do we say yes, or do we say no, not now? Let's start with a direct model. Well, I hope that if it were you, you wouldn't do that. I hope instead what you would do is do what they're asking and say yes and say how. How can we support you? How can we make sure that the clients in that area are getting their promises kept and met when you make them, when we make them? Because whether the market understands that you're a master distributor as a separate business, or whether that market believes you're direct with NobleBiz, they want the same outcome. They want the relationship with the technology that enhances their business environment. And the promises that you make are the promises: I'm going to keep you safe. And they know that NobleBiz is built on I'm going to keep you safe. So ultimately, that's what they care about. So if this model will meet those goals and the fundamental approach to how we embrace our client, care about our client, and continue to thrive with that client, then why wouldn't we do it? Now, here's another thing. We're now also heading into Latin America. We're actually heading into other areas. So what if I go into a place? Let's say I go into Argentina or Colombia or a place in Central America or maybe even Mexico. And we go into those areas and each one has a different model. Do we say yes to all of the models? We may. Before we say no, what we want to do is say how. So how would we handle different models in different areas? And let's look at that in a positive way without judgment to make sure that if we think it's manageable, we'll do it. If we don't think it's manageable, we won't. Years ago, after I sold Touchstar Software, I began a company that was built on the idea of bringing companies in that were technology-based companies that were global in nature, not American, and that wanted to get into the American market. And one of the reasons I built this business was because of the problems I had when my own company in the years past was moving into different regions. So this idea of being comfortable saying yes and uncomfortable saying no was really hard earned. So in those days, years ago, when I was running a business, I would be very successful in a certain market, and I would take that same model into other areas of the world. I will tell you this: there wasn't one area of the world that my first endeavor into it was successful, because all I was bringing to them was what I had already done, what I had my own comfort with, but it didn't necessarily resonate with the local region. So the premise of the business that I built was, if I'm doing that, and I've learned that bringing in solely the model I'm comfortable with into an environment isn't the best, I really think companies outside of the US are going to face the same issue when they come in the US. And sure enough, that was the case. So we felt that we could teach companies what the nuance of how their product would fit and be supported and run in this country each and every time differently. And each and every time, and every company we had did not have the same model. Everyone required us getting comfortable saying yes and uncomfortable saying no. Now, there's a way to go about doing this, and I'm sorry I don't have a whiteboard. I call it ideation. So you just take a whiteboard and you sit a whole group of people together in a room, and you stand up at that whiteboard and you draw a big circle and you say, here's the goal. And then here's a funny way to do it. You go, how can I make sure I fail at meeting that goal? And any idea is good. And so what happens is people quickly, spontaneously start throwing out ways that I can fail at that goal. They throw everything out. I can sleep too late. I can be poor. I cannot pay my bills. I cannot care about my customer. And you whatever they are, and it's fun and it's funny sometimes what people will say. And then you lay all that out there. And then it's a simple next step process. You look at all of those things and you go, well, how do I make sure those negatives don't happen? But you go to each individual suggestion, maybe you have 20 up there, and you say, okay, if I don't pay my bills, I'll fail. How do I make sure I pay my bills? And I'm making it simple here, but you get the idea. So then once I've come up with ideas of how I can be successful, and remember, this is somewhat random because there are different ideas. There's no particular coordinated strategy. Then I begin to pull those positive ideas in, and I begin to build my strategy off it. And the strategy will need to meet, of course, the core values of your company. So although there are different methods to say yes, what should never change are your core values. What should never change is your basic approach and vision. Outside of the vision and the core value, the tactics that you use anywhere in your business at any given time can change. And if you're willing to be flexible and not hardened to only doing what you're comfortable with, I think you're going to have a heck of a lot more success. Is it tough to manage that? Sure. It's tough to do things outside of any single person's comfort zone. But it doesn't mean it's wrong, and it doesn't mean that you should inspire your business and organization by saying no. How do you inspire your business? You're positive. You believe in ideas and things that come to you, and you try them, and you challenge with some questions of how, but you do it without judgment. So listen, I'm not going to go too much longer today. I hope that helped you. So that's another lesson that I've learned. Get comfortable saying yes. Be uncomfortable with yourself or others when all you're hearing is no, or a version of no. So as we move into the weeks, I have like tens and tens and tens and tens of lessons. Let me take a minute and read a few of them to you so you get an idea of what these Friday podcasts are going to be like. Okay, so I'm just going to read 3 or 4 of the myriad of lessons that I've learned. Everything is equal in terms of necessity to get done. Nothing is more important than any other. Now, I bet not all of you agree with that. So we'll talk about that and from my view. The manager's job is to know and be aware of everything all the time, and then do something with that awareness. A leader has one special tool in their toolkit that others don't. From time to time and carefully, you can be unreasonable. One other idea is build a passion play. Strive to build a passion play. So listen, these are just some of the many, many things we'll talk about. Go have a good Easter. Go enjoy the springtime as it comes upon you. Let's hope the world is safe for more people all the time and that your business thrives. So with that, if you have comments and you want to bring me some insights of your own, let's talk about them. You can drop them in here now or in the future, just steve.biederman@noblebiz.com. And hey, come see NobleBiz. Just come to the website, look it over. It's kind of fun. There's just a ton of knowledge in that site that you can learn from. And we'd sure like to talk to you about our products too, because we are doing our best for all of our clients. So with that, listen, take care. You be safe. Bye-bye.